Beautiful morning here. We're headed up to Cinque Terre, our first day out on that voyage, so we're looking forward to that a lot.
One, two, three, shaping this destiny. From soil and seed, we come from and will be.
We're just going through the passage, Porto Venere, and it's supposed to be very shallow here. It really actually wasn't as shallow as it was charted to be. It's supposed to be depths as low as 2.4 meters, and we draw 2.2. And we were seeing depths of about 4.5 meters, the lowest. So good there. It's kind of a narrow exit here, but very picturesque. So if you have to go slow to watch the depth, it's a good compromise to enjoy the views of beautiful Porto Venere. Beautiful morning here. We're headed up to Cinque Terre, our first day out on that voyage, so we're looking forward to that a lot. Yesterday there was like a continuous stream of boats headed out this direction, so we decided we're going to get an early start before all the masses head out and hopefully get a little bit of time in the Cinque Terre area before it gets crowded. But that's the way it goes in August. A lot of people out. So here in Cinque Terre area, which we think starts with this yellow buoy system, there's buoys off of there as well. They control where you can anchor. You're supposed to pick up a white mooring ball and use that and not anchor right around the towns that are along Cinque Terre. So we're just starting out our first day, so we're kind of figuring this all out. But it's really beautiful. They got a lot of terracing going up the hillside. This is one of the most terraced hillsides we've seen so far today. And if you look closely, there's like a thing coming down, a cut down in the middle there. With the binoculars I looked, and it looks like it's a water supply coming down for those vineyards. So pretty rugged terrain, very steep cliffs coming down, but they've built these terraces to grow vineyard or grow grapes. They make a special kind of sweet wine here, which we'll of course want to check out. But starting in the Cinque Terre, beautiful area, early morning here, so we're gonna look forward to more adventures throughout the day.
Cinque Terre, or Five Lands, are extremely old cliffside fishing villages that were originally only accessible by boat and by walking path. Their steep ruggedness left these villages isolated for hundreds of years. Today, the towns have modern road networks and rail service connecting all 5 towns. However, many travelers eagerly experience these towns the way they were enjoyed for centuries, by the hilly footpaths that wind along the coast that bring visitors into the village center. This area is in a constant battle with nature to keep the hillsides, the buildings, and the transportation assets from declining. As time, weather, gravity, and human interaction continually impact and cause decay and erosion, the authorities charged with protecting this wonderful collection of jewels has their hands full. There are programs to protect the terraced hillsides, the colorful structures, the trails, and the motorized transportation networks, and even the coastal structural integrity. As boats speed close to shore, their wakes and prop wash disturb underwater rocks and plants, some of the very things which bolster these towns from deep below. There are a series of yellow mooring buoys, like this one, which signal to all boaters the need to stay outside or seaward of these markers. The first of the 5 lands we visited was Rio Maggiore. Named for the river valley the village was built in, Rivas Maior. The river now runs underneath the main street, and when the ambient noise allows, you can hear it flow beneath you as you stroll past the busy shops. We arrived at Rio Maggiore quite early in the morning, enjoyed a breakfast at a cafe in the steep main street, then walked up to the village heights. We were not comfortable with how we had left our dinghy in the tiny harbor, so after a quick exploration, we returned, launched our dinghy, and sort of slinked out of the harbor and back to Sea Rose. We departed, hoping the next town would allow for easier dinghy access. As we passed Manarola and then Corniglia, we appreciated the beauty of the terraced lands and the cliffside, colorful buildings. However, we weren't comfortable with the options for shore access at these places either. Maybe we would learn more as we traveled north to the other villages. By early afternoon, we arrived at Vernazza, the town you can see in the distance. Access to this village looked much more promising. Just outside the harbor there were several mooring buoys, but they were spaced too closely together for us to use. We tried, but we kept swinging too closely to another boat, so we moved slightly around the corner. Here's what the mooring balls look like. They seem a little flimsy for any boats other than day runaround boats, but we wanted to follow their marine protection rules, so we picked one up. We grabbed a quick lunch, then took our dinghy in. We saw a sign on one of the outside buoys in the harbor that requested no use of engines past a certain point. So we got out our oars and we rowed the last several meters. Vernazza's harbor was well organized, with helpful signage and even a person available to provide information to visiting boaters. At least when we approached in August of 2019, they allowed visiting dinghies to tie off on a small section of their breakwater, or their dock. This was free for the first 4 hours and incurred a nominal fee thereafter. Vernazza, along with Manarola, is registered among the most beautiful small villages in Italy. To get the full feel of this place, it should be viewed from as many perspectives as your time for exploration allows. Lace up your shoes and head up the stairs. We walked up to the footpath which connects Vernazza to Corniglia, the village to the south. This is the view from this vantage point. You should also try to view Vernazza from the tower of Doria Castle and from the path which leads north out of Vernazza toward Monterosso al Mare. If you arrive by boat, you also experienced one of the best views, that of the quaint harbor with the brightly painted boats in the foreground and the colorful, multi-story structures behind. The mooring field we were in was close to a swimming hole just north of town. We explored here before dinner and were happy to cool off. We enjoyed a wonderful afternoon and early evening outside of Vernazza, but we were again swinging a little too closely to another boat, so we decided to move and anchor off of Monteroso al Mare for the night. We were so happy we made that decision. After the sun had fully set and the lights of the village and the surrounding hillsides came to life, we were treated to a wonderful presentation.
The invasion of the lightsabers. Invasion of the little white lights.
Like little cups or something.
We would learn this was a procession to honor Our Lady of the Assumption. Local school children made wishes and said prayers as they released their lights out into the world. How lucky we were to be essentially midstream on this wonderfully illuminated river of hopes and prayers. We each lost ourselves in quiet contemplation, immersed, as we were, in the lives and experiences that night of at least 100 local Italians. As the minutes passed and the lit candles moved toward and then some moved beyond our boat, the lights in the water blended perfectly with those on shore and gave the feeling of continuity, of people reaching outward from their land-based community toward distant shores and to the world at large. In the morning, Tom went for a run and took advantage of the many steps and paths that crisscross each of these towns. Much of the time, he ran on the hiking trail that connects the 5 lands to one another. After Tom returned and cleaned up, we went into the old town of Monterroso to visit the markets and to shop and to explore. We wandered through welcoming piazzas, unique shops, and took in the now familiar Italian food fragrances. While we explored Monterosso al Mare, we had tied our dinghy up among local boats, and because we were coming to town early in the morning, there was certainly room enough for us and we didn't feel too pressured. By the time we departed, though, the volume of tour boat and ferry traffic had picked up to such an extent that we knew our visiting time had expired.
So we're leaving Monterroso behind, the 5th of the Cinque Terre villages. And this will be probably our most northerly point of sailing this summer, so we're headed south. Monteroso was great. It actually has 2 villages, the one on the left there and the one on the right. The one on the right is kind of really more the historic part, and where the tour boats come in and all that. And it had a neat sort of fortification on the left side there. The train comes right through these areas, which is really neat. It comes right through the downtown area on its way from La Spezia to Jeanneau. So you can actually see the train coming through there. So that's good connections for getting to the villages. So this is the village of Vernazza. We were there yesterday, picked up a mooring ball, and dinghy to shore. So a nice little town. So this is Corniglia, the middle of the 5 lands, up on a high point. A lot higher off the water than the other villages are. Really nice. We're not going to stop here because it's too hard to get off on the dinghy. So there's the 5 lands or 5 villages along the Cinque Terre, but there's also some settlements in between. So up here on the hillside there you can see there's a bell tower or a cathedral and a cluster of houses up there. That's in between Vernazza down there and Corniglia here. So some enterprising people have built some places in between, which looks great. All right, so we're approaching Manarola. If you're coming from the south, this is the 2nd land, and we just had come from Corniglia there, Vernazza, just to the left, that sailboat, and way in the distance Monteroso. So we're going to come in here and try to see if we can anchor, or if there's a mooring ball, pick up that and get ashore and check out Manarola.
After we grabbed a mooring ball, we took our dinghy into the harbor and squeezed in between local boats, where we were able to tie off between one of the several heavily used stern buoys and regularly spaced rings bolted onto the rock pier. This was probably allowed, but very few visiting dinghies could be accommodated this way, so we knew, again, that our time in Manarola would be limited, so as not to overstay our welcome. This harbor was crazy busy with people going in all directions. There were local fishing boats lined on every narrow street along the water. There were steep walkways overlooking an active swimming hole, where the brave were jumping off high rocky cliffs into the depths below. There were busy cafes and bars around each turn. The sights and sound were a bit overwhelming at first, but the vibe was good, with people having fun in a number of ways. Our dinghy was safe, and we were free to venture, at least for a while. Manarola as a village was first mentioned in 1261, and it is believed to have been founded by the people of the hilltop village above, Vallastra, which was around during Roman times. The surrounding farming terraces holding olive, lemon, and chestnut trees were originally planted by the inhabitants of Vallastra. Having explored Manarola, our time in this area had come to an end, and we needed to head south. Throughout the rest of the summer and fall, we would think back fondly on our time in the Five Lands. When Christmas rolled around, I was thrilled that my husband gave me a gift of decorative tiles, one for each of the Cinque Terre villages. Over the winter, I made this display, which hangs over my land-based kitchen sink. As I look out over our snowy lawn, I can vividly recall Rio Maggiore, Manarola, Corniglia, Vernazza, and Monterosso al Mare. We know we'll be back. We just have to explore Corniglia, the one village we weren't able to visit this time. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. Thanks for watching.
Tonight we're giving. Tonight we're going strong.